Well, two of the world's biggest entertainment industry players could soon be under the same ownership. Netflix has struck a deal to buy the iconic Warner Brothers studio and its film and TV operations. The $72 billion deal follows a weeks-long bidding war. Warner Brothers is one of Hollywood's oldest and most successful film studios, home to HBO Max and franchises like Game of Thrones, Harry Potter and Superman. The deal still needs regulatory approval from antitrust authorities in the US and potentially here in Europe. I'm pleased to welcome Peter Kafka now, Chief Correspondent at Business Insider. Welcome to DW. Now, as I understand, Paramount was thought to be the front runner when this bidding war started. Even Comcast was seen as having a better chance than Netflix at acquiring Warner Brothers and HBO. So just tell us what happened.
Well, I'm not sure that Comcast was considered that serious a bidder, but yeah, most folks, I think, in the industry in Hollywood assumed that Paramount would get this deal in large part because they were offering to buy all of Warner Brothers Discovery, but also because they're tightly linked with the Trump administration. And the thinking was that would convince the Warner Brothers board to do a deal with them because that would make regulatory approval that much easier. Larry Ellison, who owns Paramount and would be putting up most of the money or a good deal of the money for Warner Brothers Discovery if the Paramount deal went through for that. He's the world's second largest man. He's also a Trump ally. And the thinking was that was going to make all of this sort of grease the wheels and happen pretty quickly. It is very surprising that Netflix has won this deal. I think in large part they got it by offering much more money than Paramount expected them to offer. They're essentially offering the same amount of money Paramount was offering, except they're only buying part of Warner Brothers Discovery, where Paramount would have bought all of it. So in theory, there might be more money available for Warner Brothers Discovery. There might be personal animus involved. We're told David Zaslav is not a fan of the Ellisons, but it's quite surprising both that Netflix won the deal and also that Netflix did this deal. It's completely out of character for Netflix over its history.
Now, people watching at home are going to want to know how this deal affects them. Will they, for example, be able to get HBO shows on Netflix, and will their subscription prices go up maybe? What can you tell us on that?
Everyone wants to know that. Nothing's going to change for a year and a half, 2 years at the earliest. That's how long this deal will take to close. It's going to need regulatory approval. Lawsuits might be involved. No one's prices ever go down in streaming or anything else. So at some point, your prices will go up again. And as far as what Netflix plans to do with HBO, they have been ambiguous about what they want to do. They say the HBO brand is worth a lot. The shows are worth a lot. Whether that means they would squish them all into the main Netflix offering, or I think more likely is some sort of offer where they say, if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can now buy HBO Max at a discount. Meanwhile, if you're still an HBO Max subscriber, you don't need to get Netflix to get it. That's where I would assume they would net out, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, OK. And now there's been backlash and scepticism from across the board. We've heard from actors, writers, producers, theatre owners. They're using words like catastrophic, unprecedented, threat. How concerned should moviegoers be about a TV streamer taking over such an iconic film studio?
Yeah, we should separate those things out. I mean, and no matter what happens to Warner Brothers Discovery, assuming it gets sold, there's going to be consolidation. Less things will get produced. People will be put out of work as they sort of look for efficiencies. That's going to happen no matter what. In terms of whether Warner Brothers Discovery is going to keep making movies that you can see in theaters, Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, said that is going to continue for some time. But he also suggests that he doesn't really like that system where you have to wait many months or a year from after a movie comes out before you can see it on streaming. And he's suggesting that he'd like that gap to shrink significantly. If you're someone who thinks the theater going experience for movies is very important, that would alarm you.
Thanks so much for that, Peter. We've been speaking to Peter Kafka, Chief Correspondent at Business Insider. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more on this story, let's bring in Stephen Beardsley from our business desk. Stephen, Warner Brothers, of course, an iconic Hollywood studio. What does this deal mean for the US film and entertainment industry?
Yeah, it means a couple things. I mean, this is a huge deal in the media industry. It's some people are calling it the deal of the decade. And what this does for the film industry is two things. It takes that iconic studio and it puts it in the hands of another studio that's delivering direct to streaming, its own platform. That's Netflix. And then the other thing that it does is it threatens the film industry itself. That is the theater industry that, of course, manages the theatrical releases of everything that Warner Brothers produces. So what that means essentially is that Netflix, of course, produces movies to go onto its own platform. And so it profits from the entire process. It's no longer going to have an interest in taking movies from its own studio, Warner Brothers, if this deal goes through, and then giving it a theatrical release time. That's money that it could be maximizing, time that it could be maximizing on its own platform. It's interested in subscribers, not in satisfying a theater audience. Whereas the other two bidders for Warner Brothers Discovery, Comcast, which owns Universal, and Paramount, of course, they both have theater outlets, so they would have been able to continue that. Now, Netflix says it's going to continue theatrical releases through 2029, which have already been scheduled through Warner Brothers, but of course everyone's asking what happens after that. And of course, after you sort of push down competition amongst these major studios, this is one of the major 5 studios in Hollywood, what happens then? So a lot of questions around it.
It is a huge deal, $72 billion. What is Netflix getting for that?
Netflix is getting that major studio, right? It's getting the ability to do a lot more than it has already. It's looking for efficiencies within that. It's looking for new possibilities. It gets new catalogs, as you mentioned. It gets things like Superman, part of the DC catalog. It gets Harry Potter. It gets Friends, a very popular TV series. It's never really had that before. Disney owns things like Star Wars. It owns Marvel, which it's made tons of money off of. If you look at Amazon, it owns the TV rights to Lord of the Rings. These are properties that you can continue, in theory, to make products out of. Netflix has always built up on its own. It's been very proud of that to this point. It says we haven't bought any of these catalogs, we haven't bought any of these mergers, and now it's doing the opposite. The other thing that it gets is it gets subscribers, right? HBO Max is part of this deal. That's about 180 million subscribers, I believe. Netflix right now is at 300. It puts some distance between itself and the next biggest streamer, which is Amazon Prime. So it's getting both of these things. It says these efficiencies are going to allow it to lower its costs. A lot of skeptics look at that and say you're going to raise prices because you have much more market dominance. And that's where a lot of the questioning is going to be.
You mentioned Amazon Prime there. Can we expect to see more deals like this in the future?
Yeah, Gerhard, we have been seeing deals like this for a while, right? As traditional tech companies need to get into the media space, think of Apple, think of Amazon, they want to be streaming as well. And as traditional cable studios try and move more into streaming as well. Streaming has changed the game, and it's called for a lot more consolidation. There's also growing space in video games. So we are going to see a lot more of this happening as these larger companies try and move into all of these spaces and get out of the ones that aren't working, like cable. The question right now is this deal even going to work? There's going to be a lot of scrutiny in the US and the EU, as you mentioned, because of the market dominance that a streamer the size of Netflix and HBO Max put together, in theory, will have. What does that mean for consumers in the end? What does it mean for the storied film industry in the US? A lot of people concerned about that. And last but not least, one of the top bidders for this studio deal, which would have included actually the cable CNN and some other cable companies, was Paramount. The family behind Paramount is the Ellison family. They're very close with President Trump. President Trump, this administration will have a say over whether this thing goes through. So it's interesting. Let's just say that, right? There could be some rocky waters ahead, given the competition concerns, given the personalities connected to it.
And you and our business desk, of course, will keep a close eye on this.
Why don't you call me in, Gerhard?
Thank you. I always will.